Greetings, fellow thinkers and drinkers, and once again, Deep Purple fans. Yes, as fans of Deep Purple, we have again recently been presented with another golden opportunity of depleting our bank accounts, or bank balances at least, by purchasing something we've already purchased many times before. In this case, it turns out to be what is at least marketed as the 50th anniversary release of Made in Japan. It is in fact the 53rd anniversary in 2025, but we'll let that go for now. My own personal purchase history with this particular masterpiece was obviously the original vinyl. Well, maybe not the original, but I had the vinyl back in the day. I didn't get the original CD pressing. I think there was one which I did not buy. But my first venture into CD was in 1993 when they released all three of the Japanese concerts they played. Was obviously Made in Japan was a combination effort of all songs from all three nights, which had been remixed in 1993 by Darren Goodwin. These were nearly complete. I think each night had something missing, being it one of the tracks from the main set or an encore or something. But it was largely complete. And yes, we'd all heard about this, that it had entered into folklore by now that they were nervous, a little stiff on the first evening in Osaka. As they knew they were being recorded, they loosened up for the second night in Osaka, and presumably for that reason, the majority of the actual album came from that night. And although they said perhaps the best show was the Tokyo show, was it technical reasons or something? Or maybe somebody messed up something, but they were certainly looser, shall we say, by that point. But anyway, that's the history. We all know that. I next encountered another release of this in 1998, which it followed on from what started within rock 3 years earlier in 95, with the 25th anniversary remastered editions overseen by Roger Glover. And he did a damn fine job on all of them. They still are, to me, definitive releases of those albums, and it was no surprise. The studio albums, at least, in the Rock, Fireball, Machine Head, and Who Do We Think We Are? So it was no surprise that they did, or he did, or oversaw, perhaps, Made in Japan. It sounded damn good. Now, I think we all know, those of us who are old enough, when a lot of these classic albums from the 70s, perhaps early 80s, were first transferred to CD, it was done as a rush job, and the possibilities or requirements of a different medium had not been sufficiently taken into account, and a lot of them didn't sound good, shall we say. A lot of these remasters that Glover oversaw dealt with that problem most effectively, and no more so here. This sounded great. It was about this time that I probably didn't have access to a turntable anymore. Being, as I was traveling around the world, CDs are messy and heavy enough to carry, but certainly not vinyl and certainly not turntables. So this became my go-to version of Made in Japan, and has served me faithfully even, basically up until this day. And I think it needs to be said here that even if we go back to the original LP, there was never anything deficient in the sound or the production of this album. It is one of its defining characteristics. It sounded fucking great. And I think that's a point that needs to be emphasized here. All right, moving on. The next one I fell for, the next one I bought was the 2014 Kevin Shirley remix. This came in various formats. I just got the 2 CD version of it. It wasn't a multi-disc vinyl. I can't remember. It came in various versions, but I stuck to the 2 CD version. Now, perhaps in keeping with Kevin and his reputation, it was a nice, loud mix. It wasn't fundamentally different to my ears, at least. There was nothing revelatory about it. It was clear, it was well balanced, you could hear everything, but then again, you always could. Now, apparently this was a remix and not just a remaster, but again, although I can no longer go back to the original vinyl. So the only comparison I have, well, I still have, would be the 98 Roger Glover remaster. Did the Kevin Shirley remix sound totally different? I don't think it does. And when I played it back for the purpose of this video, it sounds a bit louder, shall we say. Perhaps a bit fuller, perhaps a bit of a fatter sound. Sounded very good. And this is not a criticism, but it was, hardly, it was close enough to the original mix to, you kind of wondered why he bothered, really. But one thing that was very good about this release is that all the encores were included on one disc. And for each of the 3 nights, they played 2 encores. Some of one, or at least of each, had been included on the Roger Glover remix, although the second CD of that mix, remaster, containing the encores, only had the 3 songs on it. You have to wonder why he didn't just put them all on there. Really, guys? But anyway, he didn't, and this is the first time we get all the encores effectively in one place. They're not part of the same disc or whatever show. You have to play them separately, but, okay. Oh, not complain about that too much. It was nice to have it. Well, for my, personally, this did not displace my Roger Glover remaster. That was the one I continued to listen to. Criticizing the Kevin Shirley remix, I'm just saying it wasn't that different. Nice to have the encores. All right, we now get this beast that I've been playing for just over a week now. To the extent those close to me are starting to doubt my sanity. I've been going back over all the versions I have, comparing, making notes, drinking a lot. I suppose that's an occupational hazard when you do these things. But, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. Okay, we get quite a lot here in terms of variety. I'm being sarcastic, obviously we don't. We get 6 discs with exactly the same fucking material on it, basically. We get the Steven Wilson remix of the original album. Okay? Then we get each of the 3 nights remixed individually by Richard Digby Smith. And we get an encore CD, and there's also a Blu-ray with multiple formats on it, but since I have nothing to play it on, I've got no idea really what it contains, so I will not be discussing it. The most obvious, or let's say the selling point here, is the Steven Wilson remix. Now, I'm not overly familiar with his work in this regard, but what I have heard, I've really enjoyed. In particular, he did some remixes on the Black Sabbath Volume 4 deluxe box set, and makes one wonder, or regret even, that he was not allowed to remix the entire bloody thing. But anyway, I've recorded another video about that. And obviously he did the Black Sabbath Technical Ecstasy remixes, and they were revelatory. They really were. So what has he done here? Well, he obviously has a penchant for bass players. For one of the noticeable things on the Technical Ecstasy remix was you could actually get to hear Geezer Butler's contributions, actually every note he played. And following the trend, Roger Glover is very prominent in the mix here. That is the most obvious difference. It's not just that there are more bass frequencies, there may be, I don't know, but you can actually hear the notes, and there's a clarity to not only the bass playing, there's a clarity to everything. Again, these are subtle improvements, in my opinion. As I've said before, and I will doubtless repeat before I get to the end of this, there was never anything lacking in the original mix, nor any of the subsequent mixes that I've listed. It sounded good always. But it sounds nice, it sounds full, it sounds warm, it sounds clear, it sounds well balanced. Now, some people have taken this well balanced as a poke in the eye to Blackmore, saying he no longer dominates the mix. I don't see it that way. I see that everybody's been raised up a bit. I guess that's a subjective opinion. Is the glass half full? But I don't think any disservice has been done to him. I think it's a more evenly balanced mix. Not apart from Roger Glover's bass work, which is the difference on this mix is obvious. And if you go back, yes, you couldn't hear everything he was doing on the original mix. That you have to admit. And that has been rectified here. But again, it's a very, very professional job. One could complain perhaps that some of the between-song banter and everything has been removed. I don't know, is it a timing issue? I don't know. Again, I said some people have complained about a bit of a disservice to Blackmore. I really don't see it that way. I like it, I really do. I'm not going to comment overly on the booklet and everything that was provided. For a couple of reasons, really. If you'd bought the 2014 set, then the booklet here will be... You're going to have a strong feeling of deja vu. Because apart from, I think, an interview with Stephen Wilson, it's exactly the fucking same. We have seen all the images. There is not a new image anywhere on any cover, in any booklet or anything. The Japanese tour replica, a tourbook replica, I'm sure is fascinating. My Japanese is somewhat rusty. Well, actually, it's pretty much non-existent, so I can't read it. The folded poster is, as I've said this many times before, is neither use nor ornament. What are you supposed to do with it? You unfold it, you fold it up, and you put it back in the box. But even if you frame it, it looks like shit on the wall with all the creases in it. Why do they insist on doing this? Well, what do I think? I like it. I really do. Will it become my go-to version of Made in Japan? I don't know. It's the problem with releasing stuff, reviewing stuff even when it's fairly recent. You haven't had time to live with it. You can't make snap decisions like this. It does sound good. Sounds different, and it's very nice to hear Roger getting his due in the mix. Does it change the listening experience fundamentally? Well, it changes it, but it certainly doesn't enhance or particularly detract my enjoyment of the record. Which brings me to a more fundamental point. Remixes can work wonders. I've already mentioned two prior efforts, well, one at least by Stephen Wilson, the Black Sabbath Technical Ecstasy remix, which did work wonders. But the original production on there was not what you would call stellar. But again, one of the defining characteristics of Made in Japan was it was just all-round awesomeness. You do not try to fix a lightning strike. This was they've said since the day it was released, they were at the top of their game. It was well recorded, and hats off to Martin Birch, who did the original recording and that. And obviously, everything that's subsequently been done has been based on his original efforts. So one can't forget him when praising this. But it was a freak of nature almost. It has never been an album that has been crying out for a remix. You could compare it to two Black Sabbath efforts, Live at Last and Live Evil even. Both sounded absolutely appalling in their original mixes. And recent last 5 years, remixes of both have again been game changers. They really have. But this was never the case. This was never the case. Yes, he's had to make it sound different. He was engaged to remix it. He has to make it sound different. And I think he's done as well as he can. You can't improve on what was almost perfection and say that's a nice full sound. It wasn't a particularly thin sound. It's well balanced in the Steven Wilson remix. It always was. Yes, he's brought Glover up in the mix, and yes, everybody is at a more even, shall we say, level in the mix. As I've discussed, some people not happy with that. But just because you can do something is often not a good reason for doing it. For any gentleman watching, try forgetting your wife's next birthday. I mean, you can do this. You really can. But I'm not sure the results are going to be pleasant. On a more serious note, this is just the fact that this was done at all is, to me, just is indicative of the fact that these things have become a commodity. They always were. This is the music business, after all. But it kind of reminds me of the old, I suppose it is getting old now, the iPhone story. You have to upgrade your iPhone even every 5 or 6 years. It may still actually be working, but you no longer get iOS updates, or you suddenly find out that your online banking app is only compatible with the newest version of the operating system. There is always somewhere there forcing you to upgrade it, which at least has the justification, I use that in a very loosest sense of its term, of functional necessity. I don't get that with this. But this is what's happening. And in 3 or 4 years, we're going to get another remix. I bet you anything. And what's it going to be? A remix focusing on the snare drum? It's going to something that's going to promise you enhanced vocal clarity, because we all know Gillan, on every version ever released, has sounded though he was singing from behind a curtain or something. No, I mean, where are they going to take this next? And in some ways, I'd have been happier if this had been a failure, because it may well have dissuaded the powers that be from repeating this process, which they undoubtedly will. And speaking of which, I'd like to take this opportunity to hereby publicly announce my candidacy as being selected for he who shall remix the 60th or the 55th or the whatever anniversary edition. Why, you may ask? Well, very simple. I will answer you. For once, I would like to be on the receiving end of these seemingly endless financial transactions. I think I've deserved that, as have many of you. It's not going to happen. Unfortunate, really, because my mix would be unique. It would be talked about. Trust me, it would be talked about. Well, there you have it. I like it. I can't deny it. Again, what I'll think about it in a year, 2, 5 time, I really don't know. Would my life have been impoverished had this not been released? No. Is Made in Japan still my favorite live album? Yes. Is it, in my opinion, the best sounding live album ever released? Yes. Nothing has changed. It's interesting. Is it 70 euros worth of interesting? Well, I've bought it, now I'm stuck with it. But, in these pseudo-democracies in which we live, everybody's entitled to waste their money as they see fit. That's my take. Let me know what you think. Feel free to subscribe, to share, to like, and to comment. As usual, I thank you for your indulgence. I wish you well. And until next time, Maçhonquèrre.